it seems like any day now, the grand jury could levy an indictment against Donald Trump. Unclear why the New York Police Department put up those barricades, maybe in anticipation that there could be protests and whatnot. Mm-hmm. We know that the grand jury has reconvened today, right, Bradley? And ostensibly is like looking at the question as to whether to indict the president. The Republicans in Washington are attacking the Manhattan district attorney. Haven't heard them talk about the Georgia investigation that's going on because those guys are Republicans.
Yeah, and it's a little bit less of a leg to stand on than like they're going after the porn star hush money payment, where you could get guys to be like, come on, they're going after him for that, right, versus the I tried to overturn the democratic results of an election. And
then, of course, you know, the Manhattan district attorney is they might say there's a different complexion to the prosecution from New York and Georgia. You know what I mean by that?
Yeah.
The Soros back guy?
Yeah, the Soros back guy. You know, there is a dynamic where the Jews control the minorities and get them to do that. That's why, like, they will not replace us. It's because someone's pulling the strings, and that's why they replace. Anyways, here is James Comer, Republican from Kentucky, trying to justify why the Republicans remember how they are all about local control? Mm-hmm. Remember that old chestnut from just about probably 10 years ago with the Republicans? Well, not so much anymore. Here he is with Jake Tapper.
Testify about his current probe of former President Trump. Joining me now is one of the Republicans behind the request, the chairman of the House Oversight Committee.
Pause it. We should say that they're like basically making the prosecutor account for the documents and this and that in the court case. Now, there is an existing method of adjudicating this, and it is called, first, in terms of levying an indictment, a grand jury, and then a trial to see. And now, you know what is a disincentive for prosecutors, and certainly has been for a long time? When they fail to convict. Yes. But continue.
He testify about his current probe of former President Trump. Joining me now is one of the Republicans behind the request, the chairman of the House Oversight Committee, Congressman James Comer, Republican of Kentucky. Mr. Chairman, thanks so much for joining us. You just wrote a new letter to Manhattan DA Bragg defending your decision to investigate his office, saying that you're considering taking legislative action to prevent presidents from, quote, politically motivated prosecutions. As of right now, of course, Trump has not been charged with anything. What do you say to Bragg, who says you're trying to stop a charge from happening even before you know of any evidence?
That's not political.
Well, what the DA is trying to say is what you just quoted. He said, stay out of local investigations. The problem with that is this is not a local investigation. This is a federal investigation. He's investigating a presidential candidate, not to mention former president of the United States, for a federal election crime. That has no business being litigated in a local district attorney's office. And when he says he's not going to cooperate with Congress, unfortunately for Mr. Bragg, he doesn't have the luxury of determining whether or not he can comply with congressional requests because he crossed over two levels of government, from the local level to the federal level, to try to prosecute something that clearly, if there was a reason for prosecution, it should be done by the Department of Justice.
Pause it for 1 second. Well, you know what the judge is going to say when a Manhattan district attorney comes in with charges that are federal charges? What are you doing here in my city court? Why are you here? That's weird. How did you get here?
Yeah.
Did you just walk in? In New York City, if you are a business, you need to pay New York City taxes. And you need to justify expenses, and you sign a document that says, this is the truth. I did expend this on this expense.
Yes.
So, like, you know, if we, buy a new mouse pad here in the office, I got to tell the New York, Department of Finance, that's what we spent that, whatever, $65 on or whatever it was. If I actually used it to, let's say, buy myself a new pair of headphones. Well, no headphones I could justify, but like, I went out to dinner. Right, I went out to dinner and got myself a nice big steak, but claimed that it was a business, like a production expense. I would get in trouble.
Yeah.
Probably I could get away with it for $65. But if I start doing that on the reg, I could get in trouble. And that's exactly what happened to Donald Trump, except the number was a little bit bigger and it was for different things. But go.
Yeah.
Reason for prosecution, it should be done by the Department of Justice on the federal level.
Well, he's investigating, as I understand it, potential violations of state crimes.
Even at that, look, let's just be honest here. I mean, this is about politics. This is a presidential candidate.
Oh, pause it. Wait a second. So the entire premise of what I was saying before, that these are federal charges, they turn out to be state charges. Well, let's be honest.
Because the Trump Organization was in New York, and because this is also very reliant on testimony from Michael Cohen, who was cooperating with this office. So like that, I mean, it's not that hard to unpack, but.
Honest here. I mean, this is about politics. This is a presidential candidate. When you look at what we believe the role of the Manhattan DA should be, is to fight crime. I mean, that's one of the biggest issues in New York. We saw that in the midterm elections last November. Voters overwhelmingly rejected many Democrat candidates because of the crime issue.
Thank you, Congressman from Kentucky.
A crime crisis in many of our cities. We're trying to do something about that in the House of Representatives. And one of the reasons we believe we have high crime rates in certain parts of America is because we have prosecutors that are soft on crime. And we believe that our tax dollars, and that's where I come in with the House Oversight Committee, we believe tax dollars would be better spent prosecuting local criminals. That's what a DA is supposed to do.
Are you arguing that people who commit business crimes are not committing crimes?
Look, well, is this a business crime? We're talking about a federal election crime here, Jake. This is a federal election crime. The Manhattan DA does not write federal election laws.
My understanding is that he's being investigated for falsifying business records. There was a related prosecution. Michael Cohen went to prison. That was a federal investigation from the U.S. attorney during the Trump years. But that U.S. attorney, Mr. Berman, prosecuted, and Mr. Kazami prosecuted Michael Cohen. He went to prison for that, as well as related crimes. I don't remember hearing anything from you during that period. I guess he wasn't a candidate, but he had been working for Donald Trump.
That was a U.S. attorney that prosecuted. Right. We're talking about a local attorney. And look, if you open a can of worms here, here's what's going to happen. You're going to have county attorneys in red areas, in parts of Kentucky, rural Kentucky where I am, that are going to start trying to overreach into federal election laws. This is something that if it needs to be...
You know what that is, folks? That is an attempted threat. Now, again, the charges, you cannot lie on these forms. And if you lie in an attempt to hide some other, like, criminal activity, like, let's say the crime was, a federal election laws.
Yeah.
But it is a state charge that you have lied on your business records.
Yes.
Could also be a city charge for that matter, but I think he can probably operate on both sets of laws as a Manhattan DA. You've broken the state law. The Manhattan district attorney can prosecute you if you commit a crime. A state, upstate, a local judge is going to adjudicate it. Prosecutor is going to prosecute it. It's almost like if you get, the underlying crime has already been proven by the Attorney General's office. Now, they didn't go to charge him, but they did name him as a co-conspirator in those charges with Michael Cohen. So the Manhattan DA can find that the guy lied on these state forms or city forms, breach of state law, and as to why he did it, to obscure, to break federal law, that becomes a state violation.
Yeah, I mean, he's trying to flip Trump's fluidity with his campaign and his businesses into something that the Manhattan DA is doing wrong, when that's the impropriety that's in question here. That's part of the issue, is that this was a campaign expense, and yet he wrote it off as a business one. And that violates New York state taxes where his business resides. I mean, allegedly. It's not that hard to figure out.
Nope.
But I mean, for a moment, I thought he maybe got confused and thought that it was the Georgia charges, but it was in New York.
Well, red state prosecutors are going to now start charging everybody with breaking the law in Georgia. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what they say. That's why they're going to town on this, because it's going to make it. They're going to have a much harder time with the Georgia charges if those come through.
Yeah. But black guys, who's the DA, is letting crime run rampant in New York. That's the real problem. That's what they think they can run with here. Because
Soros is getting a, what do you call it?
Kickback.
He's getting a return on his investment.